We've had everything on the show from rock to country to blues, folk. Tonight, we take a different direction. The 9 o'clock news local edition here on Rock 93.7. Not completely different. One man, one guitar. I think we've had that on before. Tonight I have Cory Pack. Say hi, Cory.
Hello. New to all this, so forgive my shortcoming.
That's okay. We'll make this as painless as possible. We're just going to get to know a little bit about you and your music tonight. It's not just music that you do, though. How do you classify what you do?
Spoken word poetry. It's like live performance poetry. I take a script. Sometimes it's 50 words. Sometimes it's 500. I memorize every word. I come up with an entertaining, I hope, performance to the piece, and then I cater it slightly in the moment to who's in front of me. Obviously, this kind of thing would go over differently if I'm talking to 10 people as if I was talking to 1,000. So I do cater in the moment live. So there's a little bit of improv to it. I don't always stop at the same places. I don't always hit the dynamic the same way. But we're coming to record it becomes very challenging. Is which way do you want people to listen to it all the time?
You do what musicians do when they're playing their instrument and they kind of start to go a little free form. You kind of do that with your words. But you also make music. Yes. You do have a guitar. You do play songs, and we're going to talk about those songs tonight. How many songs have you gotten together?
About 8 songs and 8 spoken word pieces. So about 16 tracks altogether. And
we're going to get you to do a spoken word piece for us a little bit later on. Kind of give them a sample of that as well as your music. So that's all tonight as we talk with Cory Pack on the 9 o'clock news local edition here on Rock 93.7. Tonight, we're going a little different route as we've got Cory Pack in with us on the 9 o'clock news local edition here on Rock 93.7. I say it a little different because you don't just make music, you do spoken word. You started out wanting to make music, though.
Oh, yeah. I've been playing guitar since I was 13. I've been playing on stage since I was about 14. Mainly before the last year of doing this acoustic thing, I played electric guitar in metal, heavier bands.
What kind of, any bands that we might know?
This Love These Hands is probably the only one I'd like to mention. Is my 4 best friends and me for a long time. Got to do a lot of cool things when we were real young, and miss y'all.
You are from where originally?
Lebanon, Tennessee. Graduated there class 05. Mom and dad moved us out there when I was about 9.
You went from there, went on to college. I think you said earlier that you studied music in college.
Yeah, I went to Cumberland University in Vol State to study music theory. I wanted to teach music theory on the college level, but the band I mentioned before did really well, and I didn't want to go to school no more.
That rock and roll life kind of came into play.
I love it. It's got its days where you really poor or you really feel like it doesn't matter to people, but it takes one kid at one show to make it all better. I promise.
Guy with a guitar up on stage with a bunch of other guys just rocking out. How do you suddenly decide one day, you know what, maybe if I just unplug and start talking?
Without being negatives, I'm not going to go back to why it came down to one person. I got tired of going to band practice and I feel like I gave as much as other people, and some people knocked me for that. But so I decided I was going to try all by myself. And for about a year, I didn't tell anyone, but I wrote a bunch of songs, and I just didn't tell nobody. And then I met Carly, and she saw me play some songs, and she taught me into showing people that I played songs, and now I'm here.
And Carly is your manager.
Carly's my manager, yes.
Your big promoter, your pusher. She's the driving force behind helping you get out there. You started writing songs, but how did the spoken word come in? Okay,
so my friends, I've been writing poetry since I was about 8 years old, so most people who know me well know that I write poetry. And I don't mind doing it when we're all, having a good time at our buddy's house, because when it comes to me, I write down. There's almost always a pen and pad with me. So my friends will make fun of me sometimes with the beer in their hand because I wrote poetry. I was that guy. So I started reciting my poetry back to them. And when they got quiet when I got done, I realized it might not be as bad at this as I think. So I watched a lot of freestyle stuff online. I went to a couple hip-hop shows and kind of seen how they got from A to B. Took a couple of their tricks, and now I just do it a cappella from memory.
And whenever you're performing, you do both?
Yes. When you come to a show, I will do just as many acoustic songs as I will do spoken words, especially spend as much time on one or the other. By nature, I'm a Gemini, so I kind of have 2 sides to everything. And when I try to do more one to the other, I always end up somebody leaves feel like their favorite track got left out, so I've got a way of balancing them. And so it doesn't feel awkward because I went from talking to singing.
When you do the song parts, when you're writing the songs for that, your songs vary to about 3 minutes in length. You've got the music to help fill that. When you're doing the spoken word, do you write that and go, okay, that kind of got my message across, but just not long enough? Or is there a limit on how much you write?
It's impossible to know. And to be honest, sometimes I don't force it. So some poems end up being about 30, 45 seconds long, and I don't fight that. Once the topic or the thoughts, because I go in with a deliberateness. This is what I'm trying to get across. Now, sometimes when I get to writing, I realize this is going to take 1,000 words. And then I just deal with that. And I'll maybe write a few hundred words and then move on, take away 50 of those words when I go back to it and keep moving. They take a while to write. 2 that are on the EP Progress are almost 4 years old apiece. because they take so long to write that I constantly keep writing to stay ahead of it. So like if it ever comes a point where I don't have new material because I couldn't write it fast enough, that won't ever be a problem.
The title of your EP is Progress,
yes.
And that's one of the songs on there too.
Yep.
When you were writing that, how did it come together?
I wrote it about being in a band, the song Progress. I wrote about how cool it is to be in a band, because I don't hate the idea of being in a band, though I don't have one. It's more of like the camaraderie of like coming together. Like one of the lines, the first line is that we're back to the stage and all the rage and out of our cage, and we hope it pays. You always want it to do well, but you don't care. You really don't. And that's the kind of message I wanted to send was, don't worry so much about the result as you are about the journey in front of you. Like, because it doesn't matter.
It's Cory Pack, Progress. The 9 o'clock news local edition on Rock 93.7. We're discussing what it's like writing songs and doing spoken word, too, with Cory Pack tonight on the 9 o'clock news local edition here on Rock 93.7. Cory, we talked earlier about what goes into the writing of your spoken word material. You said that the length of it, not really all that important. It's about whether or not you got across what you wanted to. So I think you've got one that's like a little on the short side.
Yep.
You want to share it?
This is called The River and the Stone. How terrible would it be if all our thoughts could be seen? Am I ignorant and naive to think I could see the forest and the trees? I want to be a seed that love turns into a tree that bears all the fruit my children will ever need. I hope God is a river and that I am a stone so she can push me to wherever I need to go. Though the stone is stubborn, the river is strong because I can only stand still for only so long. If time is a pendulum, then the universe is on a string, held up by a hand and observed diligently from every perspective and not just the obvious point of view. So maybe the bad things are good, to show him that we can pull through, that the forest could take the fire, that the hurt could be undone, because we all rise from the ash to have our day in the sun.
It's a lot like writing songs then. That was good. Little applause here. There's a golf clap.
Thank you.
There's a golf clap there. It's a lot like writing your lyrics, though, because you do have to have some kind of a flow to it.
Yes, sometimes. And then sometimes in the other piece, that one has a definite strict flow to it. It's how I got from A to B. But on some of the tracks, there's not even a musical accompaniment because it's more of talking to someone. Imagine if you had to have a heartfelt conversation with somebody and you had to use only words. You couldn't pat them on the back. You couldn't look them in the eye. So like now you got to use every single inch of your vocabulary to keep that moving. And that's what I try to do is I try to pretend like I'm not necessarily like I'm like somebody else, but I try to pretend like I'm talking to somebody sometimes. It helps with the translation. And then, so in my shows, for instance, I make everybody sit down for the most part, as much as I can, as much as the stage will allow for that kind of thing. It dawned on me that most people who come to a show come to watch it. Well, be honest, I'm one guy with an acoustic guitar. There's not much to watch. So with this, when you sit down, it makes them want to listen. And I beat them with listening, just over and over and over again.
When you're doing your songs, it is you and your guitar. But
Yes.
you had mentioned when you're doing the spoken word pieces, you have music behind some of those.
On the recording, I've never done it before. And Jeff Crutchfield out of Lebanon, Tennessee, recorded my EP, and he did a wonderful job. Thank you so much, Jeff. But he was listening to Worth Protecting in particular and kept thinking like there was something he could add to it. And that was literally 4 hours after I met him. And I looked at him and said, hey, man, do what you want to do. I'm going to go outside for a minute. And I walk outside and I come back in with Carly and Aaron, and he has this piece laid out for me. And yeah, I did edit some of the pieces so that they fit what I thought the translation of the song should go, but understand that none of those samples I made, they're all Jeff's. So like I'm learning to trust people with enhancing the art, because it's cool enough, in my opinion, if that's the right word, so that you want to listen to it over and over again, but I can still get away with not needing it to perform it live. Because I don't want to be married just to do it the same way all the time. I like to cater to the audience in front of me.
Yeah, I think we touched on earlier that it doesn't come out the same way every time. It's not like going to see a play where the lines are already scripted.
Yes.
If you need to change for the moment, you change for the moment.
I do.
As far as writing the music part of it, you said you started playing guitar at an early age.
Yep.
Where do your inspiration come from for the songs?
Classic rock and 90s rock. My dad, since I was able to hear things, had 212s and 500 watts in the living room, and it played 60s and 70s and 80s classic rock. You could put it on 93.7's Classic Rock channel. There's not a syllable I won't miss for 2 hours, I promise.
What are your major influences from that?
Pretty much the acoustic guitar world. Like when my dad got into the 90s rock, I followed him real big. Like I'm a big Matchbox 20 fan. I'm a big Jim Blossom's fan. So I feel like, and the older I get, the more I feel like music forgets me as a demographic. Like me being a 25 to 35-ish person who doesn't get new music made for them. We got to listen to something older. I try to write music for those guys. Like when kids come up to me, or like, my friends come up to me and they say, hey, I really like this song. Well, I smile at that because I wrote it for them.
Who were you gearing Ocean towards?
Guys, 18 to 28. Like I wanted them to have a sing-along song because I feel like at that point, like you're the one that's forgotten most often. Like in my case, Girl leaves. So when Girl leaves, I'm the ocean. I'm the place you want to go but never want to stay.
Cory Pack. It's his song Ocean on the 9 o'clock news local edition on Rock 93.7. Tonight, we're getting to know more about Cory Pack on the 9 o'clock news local edition here on Rock 93.7. Next week, we could be getting to know more about you. Go to the website and find out how to send in your music now at rock937online.com. Cory, you don't just do music. We've been talking tonight about the spoken word aspects of that. You said you just kind of started telling your friends your poems.
Yep.
And the reaction was well enough. What was it like when you decided to step on a stage in front of people?
The first time I ever stepped on a stage to do this, there were two people in the room. Carly and my buddy Chris Fields. And Chris, I love you to death for that. But there's a video where there's only two people in the room. So when I started, nobody really at first thought it was anything. And there was a few people there who walked out of the room, and I've gotten better, and I was terrible. And then after I met a few people and we started realizing all our gimmicks were a little different, I'll name some names real quick. Elijah Newman, Keegan Wetzel, Brian Milligram. Without y'all, this doesn't happen on a regular basis either. And they're all independent artists, solo guys who get with just an acoustic guitar for the most part and sing. And with a little bit of guidance from those guys, I've gotten a lot better and I feel a lot more comfortable. But the very first time I got on stage and I was going to sing somebody my poem, like I almost laughed at myself as I started. Like, 'cause it seems a little ridiculous. And then I started reading into I'm a nerd. So I started reading into the history of that kind of performance. It's the same thing Socrates did to get his point across. He went down to the auditorium and he yelled at the top of his lungs all his crazy ideas. And we still talk about him 600 years later. So I feel like it's worth the effort.
Well, hopefully you'll hold up for another 600 years. You went from two people. What's the largest crowd you've played for now?
Up to this point, probably roughly 60 or 70. But that's for the last year. Definitely playing crowds bigger than that. But I feel like the crowds I've played to responded well. I'll be honest and say I'm a stickler for negative criticism. I want to hear the negative points of what did you not like about what I do so I can correct those as best I can. I have a hard time finding them. And if that makes me sound braggish, then I don't mind. But I have a hard time finding them now. It's more of finding an outlet, and Morgan Carney from Rocketown gives me my outlet. He gives me a group of people to play in front of all the time. He's the entertainment manager at Rocketown. He's a great guy. But he's helped me out in a way as far as getting in front of people in a way that I can hardly thank. It'd be impossible to thank him for that.
You're originally from Lebanon. You now call, I think, Cookeville home.
Crossville.
Crossville, sorry. You now call Crossville home. What's the farthest you've traveled to perform?
Probably back to the far side of Nashville a few times at this point. So we've been out here. Most of the fan base I've built is in Nashville. So that's as far as I've driven. But at this point, I have a tour being booked for March with Keegan Wetzel and Elijah Newman. And we're going to go as far as Atlanta up to Louisville in a big circle, hitting Lexington, Evansville, places like that. What
is the dream place that you would be performing at?
Red Rocks would be my dream place. To be able to use just my voice without any microphone, really, I'd probably get to the whole front row as loud as I can get, man. I'm kind of loud. But I would love to see how I could push my voice to do the spoken words in a Red Rock.
And your music, too. You'd be taking that with you.
Oh, yeah. It's never going to leave. In fact, I talk about it at least sometimes because it makes more sense to me. Guitar in particular, it's like some people pick up a hammer and they know exactly what to do with it. They can build a house from memory. I lack those skills. But guitar always made sense to me. I've always been what I felt like relatively good at the instrument. The spoken word thing, I never thought that would work in a million years.
Well, you took the guitar and you made What It Takes.
It's a song about what I thought it took to be a good musician or a good artist or a good entertainer. The chorus line is, mistakes are what it takes, and I'll be the greatest of the greats. On the simple grounds that, you have to mess up, to be able to learn anything that counts. You can get a book out and read from other people's mess ups, but only because they messed up do you get that knowledge. So unless you're willing to learn from your mistakes, you're never going to have what it takes.
What It Takes. It's Cory Pack on the 9 o'clock news local edition on Rock 93.7. We've been talking tonight with Cory Pack, the 9 o'clock news local edition here on Rock 93.7. Cory gets out and performs not just music, but spoken word. In fact, we got him to do one for us earlier. You can hear that in the coming weeks up at our blog. You can find you online, too. Where can they find you at?
Facebook, Facebook / Cory Pack Official, numeral 87, all one word, Cory Pack Official 87. That's where I'd like them to go. Most of my videos are there for now. On December 11th, my album will be for sale on bandcamp.com under Cory Pack. And 10% of the proceeds from it are actually being contributed to the Lebanon High School Marching Band. And while we're on it in the moment, because I did that before all this crazy stuff happened in Gatlinburg, Keegan Wetzel, who's also on Weasley Music, is donating 50% of his proceeds in this moment to the Gatlinburg Relief Fund. If you feel like buying new music here lately and you want to help at the same time, go find Keegan.
Great reference there. Well, a great way to help out.
Yeah, well, I have a day job. In fact, Ruby Tuesdays Crossville, I love y'all. I have a day job. We do this for fun and to have a good time and to be good and do something we want to do all the time. Now, with all that being said, that doesn't mean it always pays the bills, so I do have a day job that I love. But we help each other out. We Is the Way music is about, like, not a hand out, but a hand up. Like, because a lot of times, like, just the best artists in the world would have never got hurt if they hadn't had one little person help. No, I'm not made of money, and no, I don't know all the people I wish I did. But I've got 2 arms and 2 legs, and I got a brain. So, like, if we can all think like that and humble ourselves a bit with that kind of thought, a lot more would get done.
And helping out the next generation doesn't hurt either.
No, I love in high school marching, but I wouldn't know how to be disciplined with my music. Like, standing at attention for 4 hours, not 4 hours, for 4 minutes with your drums on, because you played the wrong piece, will teach you a lot about what it means to play the right piece.
Go find him on Reverb Nation. You can check out the album there, and you can find him on Facebook. Thank you, Cory, so much for talking with us.
Thank you, Greg.
Conversation tonight with Cory Pack on the 9 o'clock news local edition, Rock 93.7.